All right, Reddit, buckle up, because I never thought I'd be one of those people posting my life drama here. But here we are. 34M, thought I had a pretty normal life. Been married to my wife, Jess 31F, for about 5 years. We don't have any kids yet, because Jess always said she wanted to focus on her career first. Fine by me. I've always been cool with the idea of taking our. But looking back now, maybe I was too cool with things. Jess started using Uber or Lyft a lot about 6 months ago. I didn't really question it at first. She said it was just more convenient than driving her own car. Less stress, less parking hassle, yada yada. She'd come home from work and tell me how she had the best Uber driver ever. I thought nothing of it because, well, who even remembers their Uber? Then I started noticing she was using the same guy almost every day. His name was Tim or Tom. I can't remember. Let's call him Tim for the story's sake. Jess would gush about how nice Tim was, how they'd had deep conversations during her rides home. Still, I didn't think much of it. I mean, she was my wife. But here's where things got weird. Jess started making excuses to take Uber rides even when she didn't need to. She'd leave for errands that lasted way longer than they should, or she'd run late getting home from work. I'm not a suspicious guy by nature, so I just figured she was stressed with work and needed to blow off steam. One day, I jokingly said, "Why don't we just hire this Tim guy as your personal chauffeur?" Jess laughed it off, but the way her laugh came out all forced and awkward, that's when a tiny red flag went up in my head. Still, I ignored it, because why would my wife cheat on me with her Uber driver of all people? So, after that awkward laugh from Jess, I started to pay a little more attention. Nothing too crazy, just small things. Jess was getting home later than usual, and when I'd ask her about it, she always had some excuse ready. Traffic was terrible, or I had to stop by the store, or work ran late. It was always something. One evening, she told me she was meeting up with a friend for drinks. No big deal, right? But when I asked which friend, she stumbled for a second before saying, Sarah. You know Sarah from work. Now, I'm not an idiot. I've never heard of Sarah from work. But instead of pressing her, I shrugged it off and said, "Have fun." Then there was the phone situation. Jess was always pretty open about her phone. Left it lying around, no password changes, no weird behavior. But lately, she'd started taking it with her everywhere. Like, everywhere. I mean, who brings their phone to the bathroom at 2 a.m.? She said she was just scrolling through Instagram. But come on, who's that obsessed with scrolling through IG in the middle of the night? I chalked it up to paranoia. I figured I was just being insecure. Jess had never given me any reason to doubt her before, so why start now? One day, I casually mentioned I'd like to meet this Tim guy, joking that he sounded like a legend with all the stories Jess had about him. She froze for a second, then quickly brushed it off. "Oh, he's just some random guy. No need for that," she said. I didn't push the issue, but something about the way she acted made my gut churn. I started paying more attention to her Uber trips. She was using Uber for everything now. Coffee runs, grocery store trips, even just to go a few blocks down the street. I'd see the same car pull up outside and drop her off every time. One night, I caught a glimpse of the driver, a tall, scruffy-looking guy in his mid-30s. Nothing special, but something about the way Jess smiled when she got out of the car, it didn't sit right with me. Still, I told myself I was overreacting. Little did I know, this was just the beginning. A few more weeks passed, and the nagging feeling in my gut kept growing. I couldn't shake the thought that something was off. Jess was just acting different, more distant, cold, even. I'd try to initiate conversations, ask her how her day was, and she'd give me one-word answers or just zone out completely. She started spending a lot of time out with friends, but her stories were never consistent. Sometimes she'd say she was with Sarah again, other times with a new name I'd never heard before. When I asked to join her, she'd quickly shut it down, saying it was a girls-only thing or she didn't want to make me uncomfortable by dragging me along. It was eating at me, but I didn't want to be that husband, the paranoid, controlling type. I didn't want to accuse her of something without proof. Still, the way she was acting, something was definitely going on. One night, Jess came home late again, smelling like a mix of perfume and something else, something musky. I didn't say anything, but I couldn't help but notice she looked way too dolled up for just a casual hangout with friends. I asked her how her night went, and she gave me this exaggerated, over-the-top story about how she and Sarah went bar hopping, laughing it up, having the time of their lives. But her eyes? They were darting around the room like she was trying to avoid looking at me. That night, after she went to bed, I couldn't sleep. I grabbed her phone, something I've never done in all the years we've been together, and opened it. Of course, she had a password now. She didn't used to, so that was red flag number one. But I wasn't going to be deterred by that. Over the next couple of days, I noticed her being extra careful with her phone. She'd take it everywhere, always keeping it face down, always within reach. I wanted to ask her what was up, but part of me didn't want to believe it. The turning point came when I saw her leaving the house one afternoon. She was dressed up again, saying she was just going to the store, but why would you need to wear heels for that? So I decided to follow her. I know. This sounds crazy, but I couldn't just sit around anymore. I needed to know what was going on. I waited until she left, then grabbed my keys and drove a couple of blocks behind her. Sure enough, the familiar Uber pulled up, and she got into Tim's car. My stomach sank. This wasn't just an Uber ride. This was something else. That day, I promised myself I was going to get to the bottom of it, no matter what. So after that little stakeout, where I saw her get into Tim's car, I had a bad feeling in my gut. It was that sinking, nauseating sensation, like when you know something is happening but can't fully prove it. I drove back home, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. I told myself that maybe it was all in my head. Maybe she really was just catching a ride, and I was blowing things way out of proportion. But deep down, I knew better. That night, Jess came home later than usual, and I couldn't keep quiet anymore. I casually asked her, "How was your trip to the store?" She paused for a second, and then her eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice already tinged with defensiveness. I shrugged, trying to play it off. "I don't know. You were gone a while. Did you find what you needed?" Her response was immediate. Too immediate. "Yeah, of course. I just ran into an old friend and we chatted for a bit. No big deal." But the way she said it felt rehearsed, like she'd been preparing for that exact question. At this point, I could feel the tension in the air. I wasn't buying her story anymore, but I didn't have enough to confront her outright. So I just let it go for the time being. Then came the day that pushed me over the edge. Jess told me she had a work event in the city and would be getting home late. She said she was carpooling with some colleagues and didn't need a ride. Again, I didn't question her on the surface, but something in her tone felt off. That evening, I made my move. I decided to install a small GPS tracker in her car. Not something I'm proud of, but I was desperate. I needed to know what was really going on. The next day, I waited. Sure enough, Jess left for work again. But instead of heading to the office, I watched the tracker ping her location miles away in a random part of town. My heart was racing. This wasn't a work event. She wasn't with colleagues. I followed the signal until I ended up at this random parking lot behind a strip mall. And there it was. Tim's car parked at the far end, out of sight from the main road. I parked a little further down, my hands shaking as I watched. Minutes passed and nothing happened. Just when I was starting to wonder if I'd made a mistake, I saw movement in the back seat. It was Jess and Tim. I couldn't see everything, but I didn't need to. Her head was in his lap, and I knew. I knew everything. I froze, staring at the scene through my windshield, my mind racing, my heart pounding in my chest. Jess and Tim were completely oblivious, wrapped up in their little bubble of betrayal. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My wife, was messing around with some random Uber driver in the back seat of his car. It was surreal, like watching someone else's life implode on a trashy TV show. I don't know how long I sat there, gripping the steering wheel, every fiber of my being telling me to get out and confront them. But for some reason, I just watched. It felt like my world was falling apart in slow motion, and I couldn't move, couldn't think straight. Suddenly, I saw Jess shift, her head popping up, laughing about something. She reached up and kissed him on the mouth full on, like she wasn't even married, like I didn't even exist. The sight of it made my stomach turn. That's when something inside me snapped. I couldn't sit there and do nothing anymore. I flung open my car door, storming across the parking lot, my footsteps loud against the asphalt. I don't even remember thinking at that point. Just pure rage, adrenaline pumping through my veins. When I reached the car, I slammed my fist on the driver's side window so hard I thought it might crack. The look on Jess's face when she saw me was priceless. She scrambled to pull her shirt down, her eyes wide with shock, like a kid caught stealing candy. Tim, on the other hand, just sat there, frozen like a deer in headlights, clearly not expecting to get busted in the middle of his midday tryst. I yanked the door open, and before Jess could say anything, I spat out, "What the hell is this, Jess? What the actual F*** are you doing?" She fumbled for words, her face flushing with a mix of embarrassment and anger. "It's not what it looks like," she stammered, trying to climb out of the car, still adjusting her clothes. "We were just talking, okay? It's not what it looks like." I cut her off, my voice shaking with rage. "You're in the back seat of some guy's car, doing God knows what, and you want me to believe you were just talking? Do you think I'm a ing idiot?" Tim, the coward, was still sitting there, hands on the steering wheel, as if he could somehow vanish if he stayed still long enough. Jess turned on him in an instant, her face twisting into something ugly. "Say something, Tim," she screamed, but he just looked at her, lost for words. She started getting defensive, her tone going from panic to outright nasty in a matter of seconds. "Oh, come on. It's not like our marriage has been great lately. You're always working, never paying attention to me. What did you expect? I needed someone to talk to, and Tim was there. Maybe if you weren't so boring, this wouldn't have happened." That hit me like a punch in the gut. I could barely believe the audacity. "You're blaming me for this? You're the one sneaking around behind my back with a ing Uber driver, and now it's my fault." Jess crossed her arms, her expression cold now. "Yeah, well, maybe if you were around more, I wouldn't have to." That was it. Any hope of salvaging the situation evaporated in that moment. I wasn't dealing with someone who felt guilty or even remorseful. Jess was just trying to shift the blame onto me, like I somehow deserved this. I looked at her one last time, disgusted. "I'm done, Jess. You're not going to lie your way out of this. I'm filing for divorce." And just like that, I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, screaming after me like some hysterical lunatic. I walked back to my car with a heavy, sinking feeling. The drive home was a blur. My mind was too occupied with the sight of Jess and Tim together to focus on the road. I felt numb, but also strangely relieved. At least now I had proof. When I got home, I didn't even bother going inside. I sat in my car, staring at the house, feeling like an outsider in my own life. Jess wasn't due back for a while, so I decided to use the time to make a few calls. I reached out to a divorce lawyer I'd heard good things about. I needed to start the process, and I needed to do it fast. The lawyer was understanding and efficient, outlining the steps I needed to take. We talked about gathering evidence, what to expect in terms of division of assets, and the general timeline. It was a whirlwind of information, but it also provided a sense of direction, something I desperately needed. By the time I hung up, it was late, and Jess still wasn't home. I decided to go inside and start gathering some of her things. I wasn't looking to be vindictive or cruel, but I wanted to make sure she had everything she'd need when she inevitably moved out. I packed up her personal items and made a list of things she'd have to collect. The door creaked open as Jess finally walked in. She looked disheveled and exhausted, like she'd been through a war. I could see the guilt and anger bubbling beneath the surface, but she tried to put on a brave face. "What's going on?" she demanded, seeing the bags and piles of her belongings. "I'm starting the process for the divorce," I said flatly. "This isn't something I'm willing to drag out. We're done." She looked at me with a mix of shock and anger. "You can't be serious. You saw what you wanted to see, but that doesn't mean..." "Doesn't mean what, Jess?" I interrupted, trying to keep my voice steady. "Doesn't mean you've been cheating on me with some Uber driver? Doesn't mean you've been lying to me for months? Doesn't mean you've made a fool out of me?" Jess's face flushed. "You don't understand. It's complicated. I was unhappy, and I didn't know how to fix it. I made mistakes, but..." "Made mistakes?" I snapped. "This isn't about mistakes. It's about betrayal. It's about you deliberately deceiving me and destroying our relationship. There's no coming back from this." She started to cry, her mascara streaking down her cheeks. "Please don't do this. We can work things out. Just give me a chance to explain." "I've heard enough explanations, Jess," I said coldly. "I've given you more chances than you deserve. The only thing left is to finalize the divorce and move on." Jess's pleas grew more desperate, but I was done listening. I left her standing there, surrounded by the remnants of her life in our home. The next few days were a blur of legal meetings, packing up the rest of her stuff and trying to keep my emotions in check. I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders, even though the pain was still raw. I was determined to move forward, to rebuild my life without the constant reminder of Jess's betrayal. The road ahead was uncertain, but at least it was my road now. The days following the confrontation were a whirlwind of paperwork and legal procedures. I was surprisingly calm, perhaps due to the numbness that had set in after the dramatic events. Jess moved out quickly. She didn't have much choice, given that I had packed up her belongings and arranged for movers to pick up the rest. The first few days were oddly peaceful. I found solace in the silence, in the absence of arguments and deceit. It felt strange to be alone in a space that had been so full of conflict and dishonesty. I used the time to focus on myself, to process the whirlwind of emotions that came with the end of a marriage. Jess didn't take the separation well. She called and texted incessantly, trying to negotiate, begging for another chance. Each message was more frantic than the last. I ignored them all, holding firm to my decision. It was clear that any attempt at reconciliation would be futile, and I wasn't ready to be manipulated or dragged back into the cycle of deceit. One evening, while I was still sorting through the remnants of our life together, my phone rang. It was Jess, but this time I decided to answer. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I knew I had to at least hear her out one last time. "Hello," I answered, trying to keep my voice steady. "Look, can we just talk face to face?" Jess's voice was shaky, almost pleading. I just want to explain everything. I know I messed up, but..." I cut her off. "Jess, we've been through this. There's nothing left to explain. I've made my decision." "But you don't understand," she continued, her voice growing more desperate. "Tim and it was a mistake. I was confused. I've been going to therapy and trying to sort my head out. I realize now how much I screwed up." "Therapy?" I said, incredulous. "So, now you're telling me you're working on yourself? After everything?" "Yes," she said quickly. "I've been trying to make changes, but I know it's too late. I just need you to know that I regret everything. I am sorry." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Jess, you can't undo what's been done. Apologies are nice, but they don't fix the damage. I'm moving forward with my life, and I suggest you do the same. It's over." There was a long silence on the other end. I could almost hear her processing the finality in my words. "Okay," she finally said, her voice barely a whisper. "Okay, I get it. I'll stop calling." We ended the call, and I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. This was the last time I'd hear from her. At least, I hoped so. The next few weeks were consumed with legal meetings and sorting out the logistics of a divorce. The process was draining, but also oddly liberating. Every form signed, every meeting held, felt like another step away from the life I used to know and toward something new. I also began to reconnect with friends and family, people I had drifted away from during the turmoil of my marriage. Their support was invaluable, and their company helped to distract me from the emotional fallout. It was a reminder that despite the pain, I wasn't alone. As the legal proceedings progressed, I found myself focusing on the future, on the possibilities that lay ahead. It wasn't an easy journey, but it was mine to navigate. Just when I thought the worst was behind me, life decided to throw me another curveball. I was deep into the divorce process, focusing on getting my life back on track, when I received a letter in the mail. It was from Tim, yes, the very same Uber driver who had been involved with Jess. The letter was addressed to me personally, and I had no idea how he'd managed to get my address. Hesitant but curious, I opened it. Inside was a brief, handwritten note. Dear Ben-Ayer, I hope this letter finds you well, or at least in better spirits than when we last met. I understand that this might seem strange, but I felt the need to reach out to you directly. I want to apologize for my role in everything that has happened. I didn't fully understand the situation, and now I realize the gravity of my actions. I'm not trying to justify what happened, but I want you to know that I deeply regret the pain I've caused you. Jess and I were involved, and I thought it was just a fling, but I was wrong to be a part of it. I've been reflecting on my own actions and trying to make sense of my role in all this. I wanted to be upfront and honest with you, even if it seems odd. If you have any questions or need clarification about anything, please feel free to reach out. I just wanted you to know that I'm genuinely sorry for what happened. Sincerely, Tim. I stared at the letter, feeling a mix of confusion and anger. Why on earth was Tim reaching out to me now? Did he think this apology would somehow make things better? Or was he just trying to alleviate his own guilt? I didn't know how to respond, or if I should respond at all. Part of me wanted to tell him off, to let him know how much he'd hurt me, and to remind him that he had no place in my life anymore. Another part of me wondered if there was any value in hearing him out, if only to understand his perspective. In the end, I decided not to reply. It seemed like an unnecessary complication, and I had enough on my plate with the divorce proceedings. Instead, I used the letter as a reminder of the pain and the lessons I'd learned. It reinforced my decision to move forward and focus on rebuilding my life without any more distractions. As the days went by, Jess stopped trying to contact me, and the legal process continued without much hiccup. I started to feel a renewed sense of control over my life. I focused on personal projects, reconnected with old friends, and even started exploring new hobbies. But that letter from Tim was a stark reminder of the unexpected twists life could throw at you. It was a moment of reflection, a chance to understand that sometimes closure comes from unexpected places. As I moved on, I reminded myself that the past, no matter how painful, was behind me. The future was still unwritten, and I was determined to make it count. A few weeks after receiving Tim's letter, life had settled into a new routine. I was getting used to the peace and quiet of my home, and the divorce proceedings were moving forward steadily. I had even started seeing someone new, a casual relationship that was light and fun, a welcome distraction from the past. One Saturday morning, I decided to treat myself to brunch at a local cafe I used to frequent. It was a spot I enjoyed for its relaxed atmosphere and excellent coffee. I walked in, took a seat by the window, and started flipping through a magazine while I waited for my food. Just as I was starting to unwind, I heard a familiar voice. I looked up to see Jess walking in, her face a mix of surprise and unease as she spotted me. She hesitated for a moment, then walked over with an awkward smile. "Hey," she said, her voice tentative. "Mind if I join you?" I was taken aback. I didn't expect to run into her, especially not in such an informal setting. But I also didn't want to be rude. "Sure, have a seat," I said, gesturing to the empty chair. Jess sat down, her posture guarded. "I didn't know you came here," she said, trying to make small talk. "I've been coming here a lot lately. It's nice, right?" I nodded, though I wasn't really in the mood for casual conversation. "Yeah, it's a good spot." She fidgeted with her napkin, clearly struggling to find the right words. "I know it's weird running into you like this, but I wanted to apologize in person. I know I've already apologized before, but I wanted to say it face to face. I've been working on myself and trying to understand what went wrong." I looked at her, feeling a mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to lash out, to let her know how much pain she had caused. But another part of me was just exhausted from the whole ordeal. "Jess," I said finally, "I appreciate that you want to make amends, but this isn't about apologies anymore. We've moved on from that. I'm focusing on my own life and trying to build something positive out of the mess." She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I understand. I really do. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry and that I've been trying to get my life together. It's been a tough journey." I could see the genuine remorse in her eyes, but I also knew that there was nothing more to be said. The damage had been done, and no amount of apologies could change that. "Thank you for coming by," I said softly. "I wish you the best in your journey. I hope you find what you're looking for." Jess gave a small, sad smile and stood up to leave. "Take care," she said before walking out of the cafe. As I watched her leave, I felt a strange sense of closure. It was the first time I had seen Jess since everything had fallen apart, and despite the pain and confusion, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I finished my brunch with a sense of calm. The encounter had been unexpected, but it reinforced my decision to move forward. I was no longer entangled in the past. I was moving on, embracing the future with hope and determination. As I left the cafe, I felt lighter. The past was behind me, and I was ready to face whatever came next with a renewed sense of purpose. With Jess's apology fresh in my mind, I decided it was time to fully embrace the next chapter of my life. The encounter at the cafe had given me a sense of closure I didn't know I needed, and it felt like the right moment to start focusing on my own happiness. I spent the following weeks diving into activities that brought me joy and fulfillment. I took up a new hobby, photography. It was something I'd always wanted to try but never had the time for. I found solace in capturing the world through my lens, finding beauty in the ordinary. It was a therapeutic way to channel my emotions and rebuild my sense of self. I also started reconnecting with friends I hadn't seen in ages. Their support was invaluable, and spending time with them helped me rediscover parts of myself that had been overshadowed by the turmoil of the past months. We laughed, shared stories, and created new memories, each moment a step toward healing. One Saturday, I decided to attend a local art festival. It was a lively event with food trucks, live music, and stalls selling handmade crafts. I wandered through the booths, enjoying the vibrant atmosphere. As I was admiring a photographer's display, I bumped into someone unexpectedly. Sarah, one of Jess's supposed friends. Sarah looked just as surprised to see me. "Hey, I didn't expect to run into you here," she said, her voice friendly. I managed a smile. "Yeah, just trying to enjoy the weekend. How about you?" She explained that she was a local artist and had a booth at the festival. We chatted for a while, and I learned more about her art and her life. She seemed genuinely nice and down-to-earth, and our conversation flowed easily. At one point, Sarah hesitated, then said, "I hope you don't mind me asking, but how have you been holding up? I heard about what happened with Jess, and I just wanted to say that I'm sorry for what you went through." Her kindness caught me off guard. "Thank you," I said. "It's been a tough road, but I'm getting there." Sarah nodded. "If you ever need someone to talk to or just want to hang out, I'd be happy to be a friend." Her offer was genuine, and it meant a lot to me. I appreciated the chance to start fresh with someone who had no ties to the past, and who seemed sincere in wanting to support me. As the festival wound down, Sarah and I exchanged contact information and made plans to meet up again. It felt good to make a new connection, someone who was part of this new chapter of my life. In the weeks that followed, I found myself gradually moving away from the shadows of my previous relationship. The divorce was finalized, and though the process had been draining, it was also a relief. I focused on my personal growth, exploring new interests, and building a support network of friends who uplifted me. The journey wasn't without its challenges, but each step forward was a step toward a better future. I was learning to embrace change and finding joy in the present moment. My life was beginning to take shape in a way that felt authentic and fulfilling. And as I turned the page on this new chapter, I looked forward with optimism. The past was a part of me, but it no longer defined me. I was ready to face whatever came next with a heart open to new possibilities and a spirit ready to embrace the future. With the weight of the past behind me, I embraced my new life with a sense of excitement and anticipation. The days were filled with new routines and activities that brought a renewed sense of purpose. Photography had become more than just a hobby. It was a passion that allowed me to see the world through a different lens, literally and metaphorically. Sarah and I had continued to see each other. Our friendship grew stronger, and she became an important part of my life. We shared our experiences, explored new places, and supported each other through the ups and downs. Her presence was a breath of fresh air, and I valued the genuine connection we had formed. One afternoon, Sarah and I decided to take a trip to a nearby hiking trail. It was a beautiful day, and the trail promised stunning views of the surrounding landscape. As we walked, we talked about everything and nothing, our hopes, dreams, and the lessons we learned from past experiences. At the top of the trail, we reached a breathtaking overlook. The view stretched out before us, a panorama of rolling hills and distant mountains. We sat down on a rock, taking in the scene, and Sarah pulled out a small picnic she prepared. As we enjoyed the simple meal, Sarah turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "You know," she said, "it's amazing how far you've come. I remember when we first met, and you seemed so lost and overwhelmed. It's like you've transformed into a completely new person." I smiled, feeling a mix of pride and gratitude. "Thanks, Sarah. It's been a journey, but I'm finally starting to feel like myself again. It's funny how sometimes the hardest experiences lead to the most significant growth." Sarah nodded in agreement. "Absolutely. And I think you're just getting started. There's so much ahead for you, new opportunities, new adventures. I'm excited to see where life takes you." We spent the rest of the afternoon exploring the trail, taking photos, and enjoying each other's company. It felt liberating to be out in nature, away from the chaos and noise of everyday life. The hike was a reminder that there was so much beauty in the world, and it was waiting for us to discover it. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the landscape, we made our way back down the trail. The experience had been rejuvenating, and I felt a renewed sense of optimism for the future. Back at home, I continued to pursue my interests and build on the positive changes I had made. I took on new photography projects, joined local groups, and even started participating in art shows. Each accomplishment, no matter how small, felt like a victory. My interactions with Sarah also became more meaningful. We began to explore deeper aspects of our lives and support each other through various challenges. It was clear that our friendship was more than just a passing connection. It was a bond that had grown strong and genuine. One evening, as we were sitting together, talking about our plans for the future, Sarah brought up the idea of starting a collaborative project. "What do you think about combining our talents? You with your photography and me with my art. We could create something really unique." The idea intrigued me. "That sounds amazing. I'd love to work on something together. Let's brainstorm and see what we can come up with." And so, with a sense of excitement and possibility, we embarked on a new creative journey. It was a testament to how far I had come and how much potential lay ahead. The future was filled with endless possibilities, and I was ready to embrace them with an open heart and a spirit of adventure. As I looked forward, I knew that life was full of surprises and challenges, but I felt more equipped to face them. The past had shaped me, but it no longer defined me. I was forging my own path, and I was ready to see where it would lead. The collaborative project with Sarah took off with an energy that was both exhilarating and challenging. We spent countless hours brainstorming ideas, experimenting with different techniques, and merging our artistic visions. The process was a creative whirlwind, full of late-night brainstorming sessions and bursts of inspiration. Our project was an art exhibition that combined my photography with Sarah's paintings. The concept was to explore the interplay between visual art and photography, creating a dialogue between the two mediums. We called it Reflections of Reality, and it was a labor of love that pushed both of us to our creative limits. As the exhibition approached, we encountered several obstacles. One of our key venues fell through, forcing us to scramble for a new location. Additionally, we had to deal with technical issues, last-minute adjustments, and the stress of making everything come together on time. It felt like we were constantly putting out fires, but through it all, we remained determined. The night of the opening was a whirlwind of emotions. The gallery was filled with friends, family, and art enthusiasts, all eager to see what we had created. The walls were adorned with a stunning combination of my photographs and Sarah's artwork, each piece telling a story and inviting viewers to interpret it in their own way. As people moved through the gallery, the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. It was a validation of our hard work and creativity. The feeling of seeing our vision come to life, of watching people connect with our art, was incredibly rewarding. Sarah and I shared a moment of quiet satisfaction amidst the chaos. "We did it," she said, her voice filled with pride. "This is amazing." "It really is," I agreed. "I couldn't have done it without you." This project has been more than just an exhibition. It's been a journey of growth and self-discovery. The success of the exhibition brought new opportunities. We were approached by local art groups and galleries interested in featuring our work, and we began to build a reputation in the art community. It was an exciting time, and it felt like the beginning of a new chapter in both our lives. Despite the success, we continued to face challenges. Balancing the demands of the project with our personal lives was tough, and there were moments when the stress took its toll. But through it all, our friendship remained strong. We supported each other, celebrated our victories, and worked through the setbacks together. In addition to our artistic endeavors, I continued to focus on personal growth. I started taking yoga classes and exploring mindfulness techniques. These practices helped me manage stress and maintain a sense of balance, and they became an integral part of my routine. One day, as I was reflecting on how far I had come since the end of my marriage, I realized just how much I had grown. The pain and heartbreak of the past had transformed into a source of strength and resilience. I had learned to embrace change and find joy in the present moment. As the exhibition continued to gain momentum and our creative partnership flourished, I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the experiences that had shaped me. Life had a way of throwing unexpected challenges and opportunities my way, and I was learning to navigate them with a sense of curiosity and openness. The future was still uncertain, but it was filled with possibilities. I was ready to face whatever came next, knowing that I had the tools and support to handle it. The journey had been difficult, but it had led me to a place of growth, creativity, and new beginnings. And so, with each new day, I continued to embrace the adventure of life, grateful for the lessons learned and excited for the opportunities that lay ahead. The success of Reflections of Reality marked a new phase in my life. With the exhibition behind us, Sarah and I found ourselves exploring new creative avenues and opportunities. Our work had gained recognition, and we were approached by various art communities and organizations interested in collaborations and exhibitions. One afternoon, as I was working on a new photography series, I received an unexpected call from a local art magazine. They wanted to feature our project in an upcoming issue, highlighting its unique approach and the impact it had on the local art scene. I was thrilled. This was a fantastic opportunity to showcase our work to a broader audience. Sarah and I met to discuss the article and prepare for the interview. We were excited, but also a bit nervous about how the magazine would present our story. The interview process was thorough, with questions about our artistic vision, the challenges we faced, and the personal journey behind the project. As we were preparing, Sarah mentioned she had a potential lead on another collaborative project. "I've been talking to a local theater group," she said. "They're interested in combining their performances with our art. It could be a fascinating fusion of live performance and visual art." The idea intrigued me. "That sounds like a fantastic opportunity. Let's explore it further and see how we can make it work." We scheduled a meeting with the theater group to discuss the details. The concept was to create an immersive experience where our art would interact with live performances, adding a visual dimension to the storytelling. The project had the potential to be groundbreaking and push the boundaries of traditional art forms. As we delved into the details of the new project, I started to reflect on how much had changed in my life. The pain of the past felt like a distant memory, replaced by a sense of excitement and possibility. I had found a new purpose and a creative outlet that allowed me to express myself in ways I had never imagined. One evening, after a particularly long day of work, I decided to take a break and visit one of my favorite parks. It was a place I often went to clear my mind and find inspiration. As I walked along the trails, I noticed a familiar face, a man who looked strikingly similar to someone I once knew. My heart skipped a beat as I realized it was Tim, the Uber driver from my past. He was sitting on a bench, absorbed in a book. I hesitated for a moment, unsure if I should approach him, but curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to say hello. "Tim," I called out, cautiously approaching him. He looked up, a look of surprise crossing his face. "Oh, hey, I didn't expect to see you here." I sat down next to him, trying to keep the conversation casual. "I come here often to clear my head. How have you been?" Tim shrugged, looking somewhat uncomfortable. "I've been okay, trying to move forward, just like you. I didn't expect to run into you, but it's good to see you're doing well." We talked for a while, catching up on each other's lives. Tim shared that he had made significant changes since our last encounter. He was pursuing a new career path and working on personal growth. It was clear that he had been on a journey of his own, and he seemed genuinely remorseful for his past actions. As we chatted, I realized that I had forgiven him long ago, not just for his role in the betrayal, but for the way he had been part of my healing process. The encounter was a reminder that people change, and that holding on to resentment only hindered personal growth. "Well," I said, standing up to leave, "I'm glad to hear you're doing well. It was good to catch up." Tim nodded, a genuine smile on his face. "Yeah, it was nice. Take care of yourself." As I walked away from the park, I felt a sense of closure and peace. The past was no longer a source of pain. It was a chapter that had shaped me but no longer defined me. The new connections and opportunities in my life were a testament to my resilience and growth. The future was still full of possibilities, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next with an open heart and a spirit of adventure. Each new experience was a step forward, and I was eager to see where this journey would lead. The collaboration with the theater group took off with incredible enthusiasm. We spent weeks working closely with the performers, integrating our art into their shows and creating a mesmerizing fusion of visual and live art. The experience was exhilarating and challenging, pushing both Sarah and me to explore new creative horizons. Our joint project, Art in Motion, premiered to a full house, and the response was overwhelmingly positive. The combination of our art with live performances created a unique and immersive experience that resonated with the audience. Watching our work come to life in such an innovative way was profoundly satisfying. Amid the excitement of the new project, I found myself reflecting on how much my life had transformed over the past months. The journey from heartbreak to creative fulfillment had been a roller coaster, but it had also been an incredible period of personal growth. One evening, as I was winding down from a busy day, I received a message from a familiar name, my old friend Alex. We hadn't spoken in a while, and his message was a pleasant surprise. He wanted to catch up and hear about what I had been up to. We arranged to meet at a cafe downtown. When we saw each other, it was as if no time had passed. Alex and I fell back into easy conversation, sharing updates about our lives and reflecting on the past. "I've been following your work," Alex said with a smile. "I saw some of the photos from your exhibition and the new project. It's impressive. You've really turned things around." "Thanks," I said, feeling a surge of pride. "It's been a journey, but I'm really enjoying where I'm at now. It's amazing how much can change when you're open to new possibilities." As we talked, Alex mentioned that he was considering a career change himself, driven by a newfound passion for community work. His enthusiasm was contagious, and it was inspiring to see how he was embracing change and pursuing his goals with renewed vigor. Our conversation turned to personal growth and the lessons we had learned. We both agreed that the struggles we faced had been pivotal in shaping who we had become. The challenges had pushed us to explore new paths and discover strengths we didn't know we had. As we finished our coffee and said our goodbyes, I felt a renewed sense of connection with the world around me. Reconnecting with Alex and reflecting on our individual journeys was a reminder of the power of resilience and the importance of embracing change. Back at home, I continued to work on my photography and our collaborative projects with Sarah. The creative process was invigorating, and I felt a deep sense of satisfaction from the work we were doing. Each day brought new challenges and opportunities, and I embraced them with enthusiasm. One afternoon, I received a phone call from an art curator who had seen our work and wanted to discuss a potential gallery representation. The opportunity was both exciting and daunting, but I felt ready to take on the challenge. It was a chance to further explore my artistic vision and reach new audiences. As I prepared for the next phase of my journey, I took a moment to reflect on how far I had come. The pain of the past had transformed into a source of strength and inspiration. I had learned to embrace change, to find joy in the present, and to look forward with optimism. The future was still full of possibilities, and I was eager to continue exploring new paths. The journey had taught me valuable lessons about resilience, growth, and the importance of staying true to oneself. I was ready to face whatever came next with an open heart and a spirit of adventure, knowing that each step forward was a step toward a brighter and more fulfilling future. The gallery representation marked a significant milestone in my journey. It was both thrilling and humbling to see my work displayed in a prestigious venue, and the opportunity to share my art with a broader audience was incredibly gratifying. The opening reception was a celebration of not just my work, but of the path I had traveled to get there. Sarah and I continued to work closely, and our collaboration with the theater group evolved into a new project that integrated our art into a series of community workshops. We aim to inspire others through creative expression and to foster a sense of connection within the community. The workshops were a hit, and seeing the positive impact on participants was deeply rewarding. One evening, after a particularly successful workshop, Sarah and I sat down to discuss our next steps. We talked about the future of our collaboration and the possibility of expanding our work into new areas. Our conversation was filled with excitement and possibility, and it felt like we were on the brink of something truly transformative. As I reflected on the past year, I marveled at the changes that had taken place. From the heartbreak and turmoil of my previous relationship to the creative and personal growth I had experienced, it was clear that each challenge had contributed to my journey. The past had shaped me, but it no longer held me back. I had learned to embrace change and to find strength in adversity. The experiences had taught me valuable lessons about resilience, self-discovery, and the importance of staying true to oneself. I had also come to appreciate the power of new connections and the impact of genuine relationships. One day, I received an unexpected phone call from an old colleague, Laura, who had been a close friend during a pivotal time in my life. She wanted to reconnect and catch up on what had been happening since we last spoke. We agreed to meet for coffee, and it was wonderful to catch up with her. Laura was excited to hear about my journey and the projects I had been working on. She shared her own experiences and the changes she had undergone. It was a reminder of how our paths intersected and diverged, and how we all continued to grow and evolve. As I looked ahead, I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the experiences that had shaped me. The future was filled with possibilities, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next with an open heart and a spirit of adventure. Each new opportunity was a chance to explore, learn, and grow. The journey had taught me that life was a series of chapters, each with its own challenges and triumphs. And while the past would always be a part of me, it was the present and the future that truly mattered. I was committed to living each day with purpose, joy, and a willingness to embrace new experiences. With a sense of optimism and excitement, I stepped into the future, ready to face whatever came my way. The journey had been transformative, and I was eager to see where the next chapter of my life would lead.